Hello, welcome to my channel. Today we're looking into the disappearance of Susan Marie Powell, 28 years old, December 7, 2009. It says she was 5'4", 130 pounds. Last seen by family and friends December 6, 2009. And her husband shortly after midnight on the 7th of December. Brown hair, medium length, sometimes was highlighted, blue eyes. Black dress, black shirt. Yeah, there's some photos, but they're awful small. And here's the Charlie Project, and I don't know if it's true or accurate. And so if the information on there upsets you and you feel like it's not true, I can only apologize because I don't know where they get the information from. But I find it really interesting, and I'm going to read it. She's been missing since December 7th, it says 2009. Her birthday was October 16th, 1981. This says she was 5'4", 130 pounds. And her maiden name is Cox, and some agencies refer to her as Susan Cox Powell. And this is what it says. A friend of Susan Powell visited her at her residence in the 6200 block of West Sarah Circle in West Valley City, Utah, on the afternoon of Sunday, December 6, 2009. The friend, Susan, and Susan's husband of 8 years, Josh, they all had lunch together. According to her friend, Susan was behaving normally at the time, and she only said that she was tired and wanted to take a nap before dinner. The next day, both Susan and Josh didn't show up for work or call their employers to say they would be absent. They also failed to drop their children off at daycare. Authorities issued a missing persons bulletin for Susan, Josh, and their two sons, 2-year-old Charlie and 4-year-old Braden. Photos of Josh, Charlie, and Braden are posted with a case summary. Josh and the children returned home at 5 p.m., but Susan has never been heard from again. Josh said he had taken his sons camping in the desert at Simpson Springs along the Pony Express Trail late on Sunday night. He returned home to find Susan missing. He said he last saw Susan at their home at 12:30 a.m. That's after midnight on December 7th as he was setting out on a camping trip. Hold on a minute. Day of the week, December 7th, 2009. Monday. Okay. So they got to be to work, but at 12:30 in the morning he's going camping. As he's setting out on the camping trip, Susan didn't go with him because she felt sick. Josh said he didn't go to work on Monday because he got confused about what day of the week it was. Authorities quickly classified Susan's disappearance as suspicious and executed a search warrant on their home. Her family described her as a devoted mother who would not have abandoned her children. She left her purse, her keys, and her cell phone behind at home. Investigators stated on the day Susan was reported missing, they noticed a large wet spot in her home, fans blowing on it to dry it. They questioned Josh's story, stating they didn't know why he would have taken 2 toddlers camping in the cold weather. The temperatures during the time of the purported camping trip were well below freezing, with mixed rain and snow. And it's the middle of the night, and they had to be at work the next day. So they had to get up in, 6 hours to go to work? I don't know how many hours, but I don't know if it's true, but I'm reading it. It's interesting. Police searched the site where Josh said he had set up camp, but they were unable to determine whether anyone had camped there recently. Braden did confirm that the trip had taken place, however. A week after Susan's disappearance, Josh hired an attorney. Authorities named him as a person of interest in her case and stated he hadn't cooperated with the investigation. The police briefly impounded the family's minivan and searched it. During the day that the van was in police custody, Josh rented a car to drive. Investigators later determined he had driven it hundreds of miles before he returned it. But the car didn't have any stored GPS data to indicate where it had been driven. A neighbor said Josh appeared at his home when it was time to return the rented car and get his van back from the police. The neighbor stated he was acting oddly, his hands were badly wind burned, and he kept putting lotion on them. And remember, it said it was freezing cold with like rain and stuff. In January 2010, a month after Susan disappeared, Josh packed his family's belongings, put their house up for rent, and moved to Puyallup. I don't know how to pronounce that. Puyallup, Washington, with the children. Both he and Susan are originally from Washington and have relatives there. Josh moved in with his father, Stephen Powell. A photo of Stephen is posted with his case summary. Josh and Stephen cut off access to the children from Susan's family, including her parents, Judy and Chuck Cox. In a media interview in November 2010, Josh stated his wife was mentally unstable and he thought she had left on her own accord, possibly to be with another man, and was not afraid to return because of the media attention her disappearance had generated. Susan's family and Josh's own sister disputed this characterization of her, but Stephen supported Josh's statements, and he and Josh planned to publish on their website excerpts from the diary Susan kept when she was a teenager, more than a decade before her disappearance, saying the writings were proof that she was a troubled woman and didn't get along with her parents. Susan's family got an injunction to stop the publication. Some of Susan's neighbors stated she had been unhappy in her marriage and had spoken openly of divorce. One of her acquaintances stated Susan had been saving money for this purpose. The couple met in 2000, married in 2001. After 6 months of dating, Susan was 19 years old and Josh was 25 at the time of the wedding. They had initially been happy together, but the relationship deteriorated after they moved from Washington State to Utah several years before Susan's disappearance. They filed for bankruptcy in 2007 with close than $200,000 in debt. Susan reportedly described Josh as controlling and claimed they argued frequently. She was active in her local ward of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, LDS, but Josh had stopped attending church services. The couple did attend marriage counseling through their church for about 4 months. The counseling ended when Susan disappeared. Josh later claimed LDS members tried to alienate Susan against him and pressured her to divorce him against her wishes simply because he was no longer active in the church. For about 2 months after her disappearance, Susan's family stood by Josh and said they didn't believe he would have harmed her. In February 2010, however, a family friend appointed as spokesperson for Susan's family told the media they'd learned that Josh had been emotionally abusing Susan for years, and there was at least one episode of physical abuse as well. The Coxes stated that Josh alienated their children against Susan and limited her access to the family's bank account, even though she was the primary earner. They claimed he often didn't allocate her enough money to buy food for herself and the children, and she had to start a vegetable garden as a result. Susan has reportedly said she planned to leave Josh on April 6, 2010, the couple's wedding anniversary, if their marriage didn't improve before then. In the aftermath of her disappearance, relations between Josh and her parents had become so heated that a judge ordered him and Chuck Cox to keep at least $500 apart. There was speculation that Susan's disappearance was connected to the December 2009 disappearance of 30-year-old Stephen Kocher. He left his St. George, Utah home on December 12th and was last seen the next day in Nevada. Because Kocher was about the same age as Susan and disappeared from the same state at approximately the same time, investigators looked into the possibility that their disappearances were linked. Josh actually suggested the two had run away together, possibly to Brazil, where Kocher had been before on a mission trip. Authorities could find no connection between the disappearances and no evidence that the two even knew each other, however. In September 2011, Steve was charged with voyeurism and possession of child pornography. When they searched his Washington home for evidence in Susan's disappearance in August, authorities found more than 1,000 videos of women and girls as young as 8 being filmed without their knowledge in various degrees of undress, including completely nude. Some of the images showed the victims taking baths, showering, and using the toilet. Police said it appeared Stephen had been making films for at least a decade. One of the women in the tapes was Susan. Stephen also had pictures of other nude female bodies with their heads replaced by an image of Susan's face and photos of him masturbating to a video of Susan. In May 2012, Stephen was convicted of 15 charges related to the child sexual abuse images. He was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison. Interesting, Stephen had earlier claimed Susan was a very sexual person and that she wanted to have an affair with him, but Susan's family said the opposite was true, and Susan and Josh had moved to Utah in part to get away from her father-in-law's unwanted sexual advances. One of Susan's friends said she told him Stephen had spied on her while she was dressing, and after she moved to Utah, she told Josh she never wanted to allow Stephen inside their home. Josh admitted he was aware of his father's fixation on Susan. In her journal, Susan wrote that she thought Stephen was a pedophile and a bad influence on Josh. Susan and Josh's children were taken into foster care following Stephen's arrest. The Coxes sought and obtained temporary custody of them. Josh received supervised visitation twice a week and rented a new home and submitted to a psychological evaluation in his bid to regain custody. The psychologist who evaluated Josh diagnosed him with a narcissistic personality and noted that while he was an affectionate and attentive parent, he repeatedly said inappropriate things to Charlie and Braden about Susan's family, in spite of being told not to, and believed a militant faction of the LDS Church wanted to kidnap them. Among other statements, he told the boys that Mormon police had put Stephen in jail on false charges and were trying to do the same thing to him. He denied any inappropriate interest in pornography and any knowledge of pornographic images on Stephen's computer, but he admitted he might not have turned his father into the police if he had known about the child sexual abuse materials. The police in Utah found about 400 images of cartoon sex and drawings with incestuous themes on Josh's computer in 2009, but the authorities in Washington didn't learn of this till November 2011 and didn't actually see the pictures until January. In February 2012, the judge ordered Josh to undergo a psychosexual evaluation and polygraph test and said he could not regain custody of his sons until this was done. The next weekend, during his next visit with Charlie and Braden at his home, Josh let the boys in the house but locked the supervisor out. He then attacked the children with a hatchet and set the house on fire, killing himself and his sons almost instantly. He left message behind for his family and lawyer, apologizing for his actions and saying he couldn't live without his children. None of the messages mentioned Susan's. Authorities stated it appeared as if he had been planning the murder-suicide for some time. He had stockpiled gasoline and given the boys' belongings away. Josh had apparently exhibited dysfunctional behavior and violent tendencies since childhood. He attempted suicide when he was a teenager, killed his sister's pets, occasionally hit and pushed his mother, and once threatened her with a butcher knife. His parents had a difficult divorce and custody battle. Stephen accused Josh's mother, Terica, of practicing witchcraft, and Terica stated Stephen beat Josh on a regular basis and alienated all of her children against her. Stephen got custody of Josh and his two brothers while Josh's sister went to live with her mother. Josh and his mother repaired their relationship after he reached adulthood, and she had supported his bid for custody of Braden and Charlie. In late March 2012, newly unsealed documents revealed additional evidence police had tied Josh to Susan's disappearance. Her blood had been found on the tile floor next to the couch in the family home, and her cell phone was in Josh's car, something he couldn't explain. When Josh turned Susan's phone over to the police, it was turned off and missing its SIM card, the portable memory chip that stores the information about the device. He later gave his own phone over to the authorities, and it was missing the SIM card. Susan had $1.5 million in insurance on her life. A short time after her disappearance, Josh began drawing on her retirement account, and he canceled all her upcoming chiropractic appointments. She left a will in a safe deposit box registered in her name only, along with a handwritten letter addressed to her family and friends saying Josh had threatened to destroy her and told her the children will not have a mother and father if she divorced him. The letter stated if she died, it may not be an accident even if it looks like one. Charlie told the police that Susan accompanied them on the camping trip the night of the camping trip the night of her disappearance, but she didn't come back with them, and he didn't know why. Weeks after his mother's disappearance, after he had moved to Washington, Charlie told the teacher that his mother was dead. In February 2013, less than a week after the one-year anniversary of the murder-suicide, Josh's brother Michael Powell took his own life by jumping off the roof of the parking garage at the apartment building where he lived in Minnesota. Michael had been fighting with Susan's parents over the $2 million in life insurance Josh had taken out on himself and his sons. Josh has designated his brother as the primary beneficiary of the policies, but the Coxes challenged this and the insurance refused to pay until the issue was settled in court. Michael had been an ardent supporter of his father and brother and stated he believed the police were conspiring to frame them both. There are now 3 surviving Powell siblings, Alina Powell, John Powell, and Jennifer Graves. After Michael's death, authorities announced they believed Josh was involved in Susan's disappearance and Michael helped him cover it up. Michael sold his car for salvage value at an Oregon junkyard 2 weeks after Susan's disappearance, a fact investigators didn't learn for 2 years, and never adequately explained why he had done so or how he used the vehicle in the intervening period. The 2 brothers communicated using computer code, most of which police have been unable to crack. In May 2013, authorities stated they were closing the investigation into Susan's disappearance. In July 2018, Stephen died of natural causes in a Washington hospital, age 68. Susan's family has been very critical of the police investigation, particularly after Josh, Charlie, and Braden's deaths. The Coxes stated the authorities had more than enough evidence to move forward with charges against Josh if they had, they could have prevented his death and the children's murders. Before her disappearance, Susan worked as a stockbroker for the Wells Fargo Bank. Foul play is suspected in her case due to the circumstances involved. We're going to look at some Jane Does. We have this one found in Joint Base Lewis-McChord, Washington, October 13th, 2010. And we have this one in Angeles National Forest, Los Angeles County, California. I thought this one looked very similar to her. Skeletal remains were found. You can pause this and read it if you like. And I didn't know if he had access to get onto the base. But there's pictures of that. And let's see what else we have. We have this one, a Brisbane, California. And I thought this one kind of looked similar to her, but I'm not sure. So you can pause that and read it if you like. But I thought this one looked kind of similar. And then this one is from the one on the base. And that's the one I thought looked similar. So, and then we have this one found in Roseburg, Oregon. I thought with his brother selling the vehicle in Oregon, I don't want to leave those out, right? And then we have this one found in Deschutes, Oregon. And let's see what else we have. We have this one found in Florence, Oregon. Like I said, you can pause this and read it if you like. We have this one found in Colorado. And we have this one found in California. So I just thought she was too short, so I would put her last. And those are the Jane Does that I found. If you have any information, please contact authorities and let them know. You know, maybe he said something. Like I said, I don't know if the Charlie Project information is true or accurate. I just read it because it's interesting. And if it's not, please forgive me. And if you have any information at all, please contact authorities and let them know. Because even if you feel like maybe they have that information, maybe somebody told investigators years ago, or maybe you didn't feel like it was relevant at the time, please let them know. Because especially with these Jane Does that they have, you never know. Maybe the information that you have might help connect them to one of those Jane Does, or may help them find her remains so that her family can have her remains to at least be able to scatter her ashes. And don't forget to pray for her family and her loved ones. Feel free to leave comments and have a blessed day. Bye-bye.